The crystal spires of Valantia Prime gleamed under the dying light of their red dwarf star. Ambassador Zethara pressed her delicate blue fingers against the observation deck's transparent aluminum, watching the evacuation ships launch in desperate waves. Each vessel carried thousands of her people away from their dying homeworld, but it wouldn't be enough. Not nearly enough. Ambassador, the emergency transmission is ready, announced Communications Officer Yiln from behind her. His voice carried the same tremor that had affected all the Valantian delegations since the seismic readings confirmed their worst fears. Zethara turned from the window, her flowing robes rustling like water in the artificial gravity. The Valantians had evolved on a peaceful garden world, with low gravity and gentle weather. Their bodies were tall and graceful, built for a world that had never known violence or hardship. Their pale blue skin was thin as silk, their bones hollow like birds. They were a species of philosophers, artists, and scientists who had achieved interstellar travel through pure intellectual pursuit. Send it on all known frequencies to the Galactic Cooperative Council, she instructed. Priority Alpha Emergency Protocols. The transmission chamber hummed to life, its walls covered in flowing script that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Zethara stood before the recording device, composing herself despite the planet-shaking tremors that rattled the building every few minutes. This is Ambassador Zethara of Valantia Prime, speaking on behalf of the Valantian Republic. We are transmitting an emergency distress call to all member worlds of the Galactic Cooperative. Our home world is experiencing catastrophic seismic collapse due to unexpected stellar decay acceleration. Current projections indicate total planetary destruction within 72 standard hours. She paused, feeling the weight of 6 billion lives in her words. We require immediate assistance with large-scale evacuation. Our current fleet capacity can only evacuate 12% of our population. We urgently request any available transport vessels, emergency supplies, and temporary refugee accommodation. We are a founding member of the Cooperative and invoke Article 7 of the Mutual Aid Charter. Another pause as the building shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling, and several of her aides' delicate antenna-like appendages quivered with fear. Our people have contributed to galactic peace for over 3 centuries. We have shared our knowledge freely, never engaged in warfare, and always provided aid when requested. We now humbly ask for the same assistance in our darkest hour. Please respond immediately. Time is critical. This is Valantia Prime, signing off on emergency frequency 997. The transmission ended, and the chamber fell silent, except for the growing rumble beneath their feet. Yiln worked frantically at his console, boosting the signal strength and broadcasting it across every known communication channel in the galaxy. Signal sent, Ambassador. Maximum power, broad-spectrum transmission. Every civilized world in this sector should receive it within 6 hours. Zethara nodded, but her expression remained grim. 6 hours was precious time they couldn't afford to lose. She looked around the chamber at her staff, all of them young and brilliant minds who had dedicated their lives to diplomatic service. Most had never seen violence beyond historical recordings of primitive species' past conflicts. Begin evacuation of all non-essential personnel immediately, she ordered. Maintain minimal staff to coordinate any incoming assistance. As her team scattered to their duties, Zethara returned to the observation deck. The sky had taken on an ominous red glow as their star continued its unexpected death spiral. Valantian scientists had calculated they had perhaps 1,000 years before their star would begin expanding into a red giant. Instead, something had gone catastrophically wrong. The star was destabilizing at an impossible rate. Their most brilliant minds had worked around the clock trying to understand the phenomenon. The leading theory suggested interference from exotic matter, possibly dark energy manipulation by an unknown force. But theories wouldn't save their world now. She thought of their expected rescuers. The Altarians, with their massive bioships that could carry entire cities. The Crystalline Collective, whose geometric vessels could tessellate together to form enormous transport platforms. The wise Mentarch Empire, whose advanced technology could possibly even save their planet entirely. These were civilized species like themselves, peaceful, advanced cultures who had long ago abandoned primitive concepts like warfare and territorial expansion. They formed the core of the Galactic Cooperative, sharing knowledge and resources freely across the galaxy. A new tremor shook the building, this one lasting nearly 30 seconds. Through the transparent wall, Zethara watched one of the crystal spires crack and begin to fall in graceful slow motion. The sight filled her with profound sadness. Valentia Prime was considered one of the most beautiful worlds in the galaxy, a living work of art shaped by millions of years of careful cultivation. Ambassador, Yiln's voice cracked with excitement. We're receiving responses. Zethara rushed back to the communication center, hope flooding through her chest. Already? Put them through. The first response is from the Altarian Council. They're dispatching their third fleet immediately. They estimate arrival in 48 hours with capacity for 2 million refugees. Wonderful. What else? The Crystalline Collective is mobilizing their transport network. They can accommodate another 1.5 million. Arrival time 50 hours. The Mentarch Empire is. They're actually sending their planetary engineering corps. They want to attempt to stabilize the stellar decay. For the first time in days, Zethara felt genuine hope. Her people's faith in galactic civilization was being rewarded. The greatest minds and most advanced technology in the galaxy were coming to their aid. Continue monitoring all frequencies, she instructed. Coordinate with all incoming vessels. Set up refugee processing centers at the orbital stations. Hours passed in a blur of activity. Response after response came in from across the galaxy. The peaceful Aquarian pods were sending their living ships. The energy-based Luminari were offering to temporarily house Valantian consciousness in their quantum matrix cities. Even distant worlds that had barely interacted with Valantia were offering assistance. Zethara felt overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. This was what galactic civilization meant. Species reaching across the vast dark of space to help one another in times of crisis. It validated everything the Valantians believed about the fundamental goodness of intelligent life. Then Yiln's voice cut through her relief with a confused tone. Ambassador, we're receiving another transmission. But this one is strange. Strange how? The signal is incredibly powerful, much stronger than anything we've received so far. But the source. He checked his readings again. The source is listed as coming from Sector 779, the Forbidden Zone. Zethara felt her blood chill. Sector 779 was officially designated as a quarantine zone by the Galactic Cooperative. It contained several star systems populated by what the Council diplomatically termed developing species. Cultures that hadn't yet evolved beyond primitive concepts like violence, territorial expansion, and resource competition. That can't be right. Run a diagnostic on the communication array. Already did, Ambassador. The signal is definitely originating from the quarantine zone. Specifically, his voice dropped to a whisper, from the Sol System. To 19. Sol System. To 19. To 19-4. To 19-4. To 19-4. To 19-4. To 19-4. To 19-4. The name sent a shiver through everyone in the chamber. Sol was the home system of the humans, one of the most notorious species in the quarantine zone. Intelligence reports described them as an extremely dangerous deathworld species that had somehow achieved spaceflight despite their violent nature. There must be an error, Zethara insisted. The humans are contained to their home system. They don't have the technology for intersystem communication. But even as she spoke, the transmission began to play. The voice that emerged from the speakers was unlike anything she'd ever heard. It was deep, rough, and carried an undertone of barely controlled power that made her delicate bones ache. When humans spoke, it sounded like distant thunder or the grinding of stone. Unknown distress signal source, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force, responding to your emergency transmission. We have received your request for evacuation assistance and are mobilizing our rapid response fleet. ETA to your coordinates is approximately 18 hours. The transmission paused, and they could hear multiple voices in the background. The chaotic, aggressive-sounding communication style typical of human military operations. Be advised, we are coming in hot, with full battle group deployment. Our doctrine assumes hostile intervention as a potential factor in any distress scenario. Do not be alarmed by our approach vector or fleet composition. Repeat. This is the Human Defense Force responding to emergency evacuation request. Chen out. Silence fell over the communication center like a suffocating blanket. Zethara stared at the speaker in horror. Her mind, struggling to process what she'd just heard. They're coming here, whispered one of her aides. The humans are coming here. Intelligence briefings about humans flashed through Zethara's memory. They were described as an anomaly among spacefaring species. A civilization that had developed advanced technology while retaining their primitive predatory instincts. Their homeworld was classified as a class death world, a designation so extreme that most galactic cooperative members didn't believe such planets could sustain life. Humans had evolved as persistence predators on a world where nearly everything was designed to kill them. Their evolution had been shaped by ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, and countless other catastrophes that would have wiped out any civilized species. As a result, they were impossibly durable, aggressive, and paranoid. Worse, they were apparently the only known species to develop spaceflight while still retaining concepts like warfare and territorial expansion. Their few communications with the wider galaxy had been demands for respect of their sovereign territory and warnings that any intrusion would be met with overwhelming force. Why did they respond? Asked Yiln, his voice barely audible. They've never shown interest in galactic affairs before. Zethara realized with growing horror that the humans might have interpreted their SOS signal as some kind of challenge or invasion opportunity. Human psychology was reportedly so alien that they saw potential threats everywhere. What if they were coming not to help, but to conquer? Can we cancel the transmission? Tell them assistance is no longer needed. I can try, Ambassador. But as Yiln worked frantically at his console, another massive tremor shook the building. This time, the transparent aluminum windows cracked, and emergency alarms began blaring throughout the complex. Through the damaged windows, Zethara could see the red glow of their dying star growing brighter. Time was running out faster than their most pessimistic projections. Even with all the cooperative species en route, they would still be short by millions of lives. She looked at the speaker that had delivered the human transmission and felt a chill of premonitory dread. In 18 hours, the most dangerous species in the known galaxy would arrive at their helpless, dying world. What had they done? Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, her weathered hands gripping the tactical display as data streams flowed across holographic screens. Around her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements sharp and purposeful. Every face showed the focused intensity that came from years of training for scenarios exactly like this. "Sensor sweep complete, Admiral," reported Commander Jackson from his station, confirming massive stellar instability in the target system. "The star is collapsing faster than any natural phenomenon we've ever recorded," Sarah nodded grimly. Her dark eyes, marked by scars from a dozen combat operations, studied the readouts carefully. At 53, she had served through humanity's expansion from a single system species to masters of their local sector. She'd seen things that would break most species, and survived them all. "Artificial acceleration?" she asked. "Possible, ma'am. The decay pattern suggests external interference. Could be weapons-grade exotic matter manipulation." Sarah's jaw tightened. The distress signal had contained enough information for their xenobiology teams to identify the source as Valantian, one of the peaceful species from the broader galactic community. But peaceful didn't mean innocent. In Sarah's experience, distress calls from unknown sources often masked elaborate traps. "Fleet status? All ships reporting ready, Admiral. We have the full 7th Battle Group. 12 heavy cruisers, 6 dreadnoughts, the carrier Yorktown with full fighter complement, and 38 support vessels. Total complement: 47,000 personnel." 8. Sarah studied the force composition with satisfaction. When humans responded to a crisis, They came prepared for anything. The fleet hanging in space around the Indomitable represented the most advanced military technology humanity had ever produced. Each ship was built like the species that created it, dense, armored, and redundant to the point of absurdity. Where other species built elegant vessels that relied on shields and evasion, human ships were massive chunks of metal and ceramic designed to keep fighting even after sustaining damage that would vaporize most alien craft. "Sir," called Lieutenant Torres from communications, "we're picking up multiple alien signatures in the target system. Dozens of ships, various configurations. None match any known hostile patterns from our databases. Show me." The main display shifted to show the Volantian system. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the alien vessels. They were unlike anything in human military doctrine. Flowing, organic shapes that seemed more like art than warships. Many appeared to be made of crystal or living tissue rather than metal. "No apparent weapon systems," reported the tactical officer. "Minimal shielding. They're configured for transport, not combat." Sarah felt a flicker of confusion. If this was a trap, it was unlike any she'd encountered before. The alien ships looked more like civilian transports than military vessels, but appearances could deceive, especially when dealing with unknown alien psychology. "Maintain battle stations," she ordered. "Approach vector Gamma 7. I want overlapping fields of fire, covering all alien vessels." "Aye, Admiral." As the human fleet moved into the system, Sarah reflected on how they'd gotten here. The distress signal had been intercepted by humanity's deep space monitoring network, a vast array of sensors designed to detect any potential threats to human territory. Initially, the signals had been dismissed as background galactic chatter, but when the automated translation protocols finally decoded the transmission, everything changed. The message had been clearly directed to something called the Galactic Cooperative, evidence of a vast interstellar civilization that humanity had only theorized about. For 3 centuries, humans had expanded steadily outward from Earth, encountering dozens of worlds and several primitive species. But they had never found evidence of a galaxy-spanning civilization. The discovery that such an organization existed, and that it was close enough to reach human space, had triggered immediate security protocols. The decision to respond to the distress call had been controversial. Some voices in the Earth Council argued for maintaining humanity's policy of isolation, but Admiral Chen and her allies had prevailed with a simple argument. It was better to make contact on their terms than wait for this cooperative to find humanity first. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the system," reported Torres. "It's..." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Audio only? Or visual?" "Visual feed available, ma'am. The source appears to be one of the alien vessels, specifically a large crystal structure in orbit around the planet." On screen, the display flickered, and Sarah found herself looking at one of the most alien beings she'd ever encountered. The creature was tall and impossibly delicate, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow with its own light. Its limbs were elongated and graceful, moving like a dancer even in the simple act of communication. When it spoke, its voice was like wind chimes, beautiful, but utterly alien. "Incoming human vessels. This is Ambassador Zethara of the Volantian Republic. We appreciate your response to our distress call, but there appears to have been a misunderstanding." Sarah kept her expression neutral, but her mind raced. The aliens' translation software was remarkably sophisticated, converting not just words but concepts into human language patterns. More concerning was the creature's obvious nervousness. Its body language screamed fear. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," she replied. "We received your emergency transmission and are responding with full evacuation support." "What is the nature of the misunderstanding?" The alien, Zethara, seemed to struggle with its response. "Admiral Chen, our distress call was intended for member worlds of the Galactic Cooperative. We were not aware that your species had achieved interstellar capability." Sarah felt a cold smile touch her lips. There it was, the truth behind the distress call. These aliens belonged to some kind of galactic government that didn't include humanity. The question was whether their exclusion was ignorance or intentional. I see, she said carefully. Are you saying that humans are not welcome to provide assistance? No, that's not. We desperately need assistance. It's just that we weren't expecting. Zethara gestured helplessly at something off-screen. Your fleet composition suggests military rather than humanitarian purpose. Sarah glanced around her bridge at the tactical displays, weapons systems, and battle-ready crew. She supposed it might look threatening to a species that had never seen real military hardware. Ambassador. Humanity has learned that disaster relief and military readiness are not mutually exclusive concepts. We came prepared for any scenario, including the possibility that your distress call was the result of hostile action. Zethara's alien features conveyed obvious confusion. Hostile action? But who would attack a rescue operation? Risen Times is cased. Olivation. The question revealed so much about these aliens that Sarah almost pitied them. They clearly belonged to a civilization that had never encountered real predators. The idea that someone might exploit a disaster for gain was apparently foreign to their thinking. Ambassador. We'll need detailed information about the situation before proceeding. How many civilians require evacuation? What's your current transport capacity? Are there any other parties involved in this system? We have approximately 6 billion citizens requiring evacuation. Our current capacity, combined with incoming cooperative vessels, can accommodate roughly 4 billion. We estimate the planet has less than 60 hours before total destruction. Sarah ran quick calculations in her head. 2 billion unaccounted civilians. Even her battle group's transport capacity couldn't handle numbers like that. But humans had faced impossible odds before. Understood. We'll coordinate with your existing evacuation efforts. My fleet can accommodate approximately 50,000 refugees per transport ship. That's another 1.9 million evacuees. She watched Zethara's expression change as the alien processed the numbers. Even with human assistance, they would still be short by millions of lives. We're also prepared to investigate the cause of your stellar instability. Sarah continued. Our science vessels carry equipment specifically designed for stellar engineering projects. You have stellar engineering capability? Zethara's voice carried what sounded like hope. Limited capability. We've successfully reignited 2 dying stars in our own territory. The process requires significant resources and carries substantial risk. But it's theoretically possible. What Sarah didn't mention was that both previous stellar engineering projects had been weapons tests. Ender 7. Humanity's attempts to develop planet-killing superweapons. The technology had proven too unstable for military use, but it might work for humanitarian purposes. Admiral, Commander Jackson called softly. We're picking up massive energy signatures from multiple incoming vessels. Configuration matches no known human or alien types in our database. Sarah glanced at the tactical display and felt her blood chill. The new contacts were enormous, each one dwarfing even her heaviest dreadnoughts. Worse, they were moving faster than anything should be able to travel in normal space. Ambassador, she said carefully, are you expecting additional vessels in this system? Zethara brightened noticeably. Yes, the Mentarch Empire is sending their planetary engineering corps. They should arrive within the hour. Sarah watched the approaching contacts with growing unease. If these Mentarch vessels were representative of galactic military capability, humanity was severely outclassed. Each ship appeared to be larger than most human space stations. How advanced is this galactic cooperative? She asked. Advanced? I'm not sure I understand the question. We are a peaceful alliance of 47 species, spanning 12,000 star systems. We have existed for over 3 millennia, sharing knowledge and resources freely across the galaxy. 47 species, 12,000 systems, 3,000 years of technological development. Sarah felt a familiar chill run down her spine, the same feeling she'd experienced during her first combat operation, when she realized the enemy was larger and more dangerous than intelligence had suggested. Humanity had just made contact with a galactic civilization that made their own expansion look like a child's sandbox. The question was whether this civilization would see humanity as equals, subjects, or threats. "Admiral," Torres reported, "the Mentarch vessels are hailing us directly." On screen, the display shifted to show something that made Sarah's trained composure crack slightly. The being on screen was clearly artificial, a combination of crystalline structures and energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, its voice resonated on frequencies that made the bridge's metal hull ring like a bell. "Unknown military force, this is Architect Prime Nexus 7 of the Mentarch Engineering Corps. Your presence in this system is unexpected and potentially problematic. Identify your species and purpose immediately." Sarah straightened to her full height, letting her command presence fill her voice. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Defense Force and the Human Republic. We are responding to a legitimate distress call and providing humanitarian assistance. Humans." The artificial being's patterns shifted in what might have been recognition. "Your species is listed in our databases as quarantined to your origin system. How have you achieved interstellar capability?" The word "quarantined" hit Sarah like a physical blow. These aliens had known about humanity for some time, and had actively contained them to Earth's solar system. The implications were staggering. "I'm not aware of any quarantine," she replied evenly. "Humanity has been expanding freely for 3 centuries. Curious. Our records indicate successful containment through selective interference with your technological development. We will need to investigate this discrepancy." Sarah felt her tactical training take over, suppressing her emotional reaction to this revelation. Questions of galactic politics could wait. Right now, millions of lives hung in the balance. "Architect, we can discuss jurisdictional issues after the humanitarian crisis is resolved. Are you prepared to coordinate evacuation efforts?" The crystalline being's patterns shifted again. "Your species is not authorized for cooperative assistance operations. Please withdraw your vessels immediately." Around the bridge, Sarah could see her crew's tension ratcheting up. Every human instinct screamed that they were walking into a trap, that this entire scenario was designed to lure humanity into revealing their capabilities. But looking at the tactical display, seeing the dying planet, and the desperate evacuation efforts, Sarah made a decision that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy. "Negative, Architect. We are committed to this humanitarian mission. We will coordinate with your efforts or work independently. But we will not abandon civilians in need." The silence that followed her words seemed to stretch across light years. The standoff lasted 17 minutes and 34 seconds. Admiral Chen counted every one of them while staring at the crystalline entity that claimed authority over this entire sector of space. Around her, the bridge crew maintained their stations with professional calm, but she could feel the tension radiating from every human present. Finally, Ambassador Zethara's voice broke the silence with desperate urgency. "Please, both of you. While we debate jurisdiction, my people are dying. The planet's crust is destabilizing faster than our worst projections. We have perhaps 36 hours before complete collapse." Sarah saw her opening. "Architect Prime, perhaps we can establish a temporary cooperation agreement. Our species may have different diplomatic standing. Say here, diplomatic standing. But the physics of stellar collapse don't recognize political boundaries." The crystalline patterns of the Mentarch entity shifted in what she was beginning to recognize as deep thought processing. "Your species should not possess stellar engineering capabilities. Our models indicate humans were contained at a pre-interstellar development level." "Your models were incomplete," Sarah replied. "Humanity achieved interstellar travel through parallel technological development. We can discuss the implications later. Right now, we have a star to save." What followed was unlike anything in human first contact protocols. As the various alien species coordinated their efforts, Sarah found herself working with beings so advanced that their technology seemed like magic. The Altarians literally grew new ships from biological matter as she watched. The crystalline collective's vessels linked together and began processing refugees at the molecular level, somehow storing thousands of beings in crystalline matrices. But as the hours passed, a disturbing pattern emerged. Despite their incredible technologies, the galactic species seemed fundamentally unprepared for the type of crisis management required by imminent planetary destruction. Admiral, Chief Science Officer Dr. Martinez reported from her station. I'm analyzing the alien approach to stellar engineering. They're trying to reverse the collapse by introducing corrective energy patterns directly into the star's core. Prognosis, theoretical elegance, but practical impossibility. They're treating the star like a controlled fusion reactor instead of a chaotic plasma environment. Their approach might work under laboratory conditions, but not with a star this destabilized. Sarah frowned. What's our alternative? Controlled detonation. We introduce destabilizing elements at specific points to trigger a controlled collapse that channels the explosion into a stable configuration. Essentially, we blow it up in exactly the right way to make it burn steadily again. And the risks? Martinez met her eyes steadily. If we miscalculate, we could accelerate the collapse and destroy the planet immediately. But Admiral, their approach has a 90% chance of failure. Ours has a 60% chance of success. Sarah glanced at the main display showing the evacuation efforts. Despite the incredible capabilities of the alien vessels, they were still falling short. Too many civilians. Not enough time. She opened a channel to the Mentarch architect. Architect Prime. Our analysis suggests your stellar stabilization approach may not be viable given the star's current state. Human Admiral, your species lacks the theoretical foundation to evaluate Mentarch engineering principles. Please continue your evacuation efforts and leave stellar mechanics to more advanced civilizations. The dismissive tone triggered something primal in Sarah's brain. The same fury that had driven humanity from cave-dwelling hunters to masters of local space. She had spent her career dealing with alien species that looked down on humans, but none had been quite so arrogant about it. With respect, Architect, I've successfully reignited 2 stellar bodies. What's your experience with practical stellar engineering under combat conditions? Combat conditions? Admiral? Stellar engineering is a precise scientific discipline, not a military operation. And there it was, the fundamental difference between human and galactic approaches to crisis management. These alien species had achieved incredible heights of knowledge and technology, but they had done so in a peaceful galaxy where problems could be solved through careful planning and theoretical elegance. Humans had learned to solve problems while people were shooting at them. Dr. Martinez, prepare the stellar engineering package. Emergency deployment. Admiral. She opened a channel to Ambassador Zethara. Ambassador, I need you to understand something about human methodology. We're going to attempt an alternative approach to stellar stabilization. It will look catastrophic, but that's intentional. Zethara's delicate features showed alarm. What do you mean? We're going to destabilize specific areas of the star to trigger a controlled collapse. The initial effect will be a massive solar flare followed by apparent stellar expansion. Your people need to be prepared for what will look like accelerated destruction. You're going to make the situation worse? We're going to make it worse in order to make it better. Sometimes, destruction is the path to creation. The concept was clearly alien to Volantian thinking, but Zethara nodded uncertainly. I will inform our evacuation coordinators. Over the next 6 hours, Sarah watched her human crews work alongside alien civilizations in a way that should have been impossible. Human engineering teams found themselves adapting alien transport technologies, making them more efficient through what the aliens called crude but effective modifications. In return, human logistical expertise helped coordinate the massive evacuation effort with military precision. The breakthrough came when Commander Jackson made a seemingly obvious observation. Admiral, the alien evacuation ships are operating at about 60% capacity. They're designed for comfort and safety, not maximum efficiency. Explain. Each alien vessel has environmental systems designed to perfectly replicate the home conditions of whatever species they're carrying. Separate atmospheric systems, gravity generators, even different lighting spectra. But humans have been surviving in suboptimal conditions our entire evolutionary history. Sarah immediately understood. You're suggesting we overload their ships by accepting less than perfect conditions. Exactly. Human transport doctrine assumes that refugees can survive temporary hardship in exchange for survival. These alien species seem to believe that rescue operations must maintain full comfort standards. Sarah opened a fleet-wide channel. All human vessels implement Emergency Refugee Protocol Omega. Maximum density loading regardless of comfort parameters. We're going to show these aliens how Deathworlders handle a crisis. What followed was a display of human adaptability that left their galactic neighbors speechless. Human crews began loading refugee ships far beyond their design specifications, stacking Valantian civilians in cargo holds with basic life support. More impressively, the humans began adapting alien ship systems in real time, bypassing safety protocols to squeeze more capacity from every vessel. Admiral Chen called Architect Prime Nexus 7. Its crystalline patterns flickering with apparent distress. Your species is operating far outside safe parameters. The risk of cascade failures is substantial. Architect, humans have been operating outside safe parameters since we climbed down from the trees. We'll take the calculated risk. Roop, actively Roop. But the real test came as Dr. Martinez's stellar engineering team began their work. The approach required human ships to enter the star's corona and deploy shaped charges at precise locations. It was the kind of mission that required split-second timing, perfect coordination, and absolute trust in equipment pushed beyond design limits. All stellar engineering teams, this is Admiral Chen, execute Operation Prometheus in 3, 2, 1. Mark. 12 human ships dove into the dying star like missiles, their hulls glowing white-hot as they penetrated the stellar atmosphere. Each vessel carried a specialized payload designed to create controlled instabilities in the star's fusion processes. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the human ships performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. They flew through solar plasma that would have vaporized most galactic vessels, using their ship's crude but incredibly robust construction to survive conditions that elegant alien engineering couldn't handle. First detonation point reached, reported Captain Rodriguez from the lead engineering ship. Deploying payload. Second team in position, called Captain Kim. Ready for synchronized detonation. All teams report ready. Admiral. Sarah watched the tactical display showing 12 tiny dots scattered throughout a stellar mass, millions of times larger than all human civilization. If they had miscalculated, they were about to turn a slowly dying star into an immediately exploding one. All teams, execute simultaneous detonation. Now, the results were visible even from the fleet's safe distance. The star's surface erupted in a pattern of controlled explosions, each one carefully calculated to redirect the collapse vectors. For several terrifying minutes, it looked like the star was tearing itself apart. Admiral! Dr. Martinez called out excitedly. It's working! The collapse vectors are stabilizing. The fusion reactions are finding equilibrium. Across the fleet communication networks, Sarah could hear similar reports from the alien observers. The Mentarch architect's voice carried what might have been surprise. Impossible. The human approach should have triggered complete stellar collapse. This stellar collapse, Architect, Sarah replied, watching as the star's violent convulsions began to settle into a steady burn. Humans learned a long time ago that sometimes you have to break something to fix it. Sometimes destruction is the only path to creation. As the crisis resolved, Sarah found herself in an unprecedented situation. The human fleet had not only saved millions of alien lives but had solved a problem that the galaxy's most advanced species couldn't handle. More importantly, they had done it using characteristically human methods. Crude, dangerous, but ultimately effective approaches that prioritized results over elegance. Ambassador Zethara's final transmission came 12 hours later, after the last refugees had been safely evacuated and the star had stabilized into steady fusion. Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Valantian Republic and our 6 billion citizens, I want to express our eternal gratitude. Your species has saved our people when our oldest allies could not. Sarah nodded formally. Ambassador, it was an honor to serve. But I think we need to discuss something important. Of course. Your people, and apparently this galactic cooperative, have some misconceptions about humanity. We're not a primitive species that needs to be quarantined. We're a different kind of civilization. One that developed under conditions your people can barely imagine. Zethara's delicate features showed understanding. I think recent events have made that clear, Admiral. The question is, what happens now? Sarah looked around her bridge at the crew that had just pulled off the impossible, then at the displays showing alien vessels using human-modified systems to complete their missions more efficiently. Now we talk. Your cooperative has impressive technology and peaceful intentions. Humanity has different capabilities and hard-won experience with crisis management. Maybe it's time our civilizations learned from each other. Number 2. As the human fleet prepared for the long journey home, Sarah reflected on what they had accomplished. Humanity had made contact with a galactic civilization that spanned thousands of worlds and dozens of species. They had proven that human approaches to problem-solving had value even among impossibly advanced aliens. Most importantly, they had shown that sometimes the best answer to an elegant problem was an inelegant solution applied with absolute determination. The galaxy was about to learn what humans meant when they said, "Failure is not an option." 3 months later, when the first formal diplomatic missions arrived in Earth's solar system, they found humanity ready to take its place among the stars. Not as subjects or juniors, but as equals, who brought their own unique gifts to galactic civilization. The SOS had indeed misfired, but in the best possible way.